John, we might as well start with Nick Blakey. Obviously pretty terrible news.
Yeah, very disappointed for Nick and for us. He's back end of the year when we moved into half-back has been getting better every week, and even on the weekend I think he had 20 odd possessions to half-time, to three-quarter time, and was playing really good footy. He's learning the craft of playing defence and getting better every week, so really disappointing for him that he's out for the rest of the season, and us. He was getting, as I mentioned, to be a really valuable asset across half-back.
Where are you at with Josh Kennedy and Callum Mills and Jake Lloyd as well?
Joey has a scan late this afternoon. We suspect he's got just a very low-grade hamstring. It'll only be a very minor. He's actually pulled up really well today, so we don't expect him to be able to play this week. We'll see how he is for next week, but the scan will give us a bit more information. But just going on what he's like today, we think he's actually pretty good. He's not too bad, but I wouldn't expect he would be playing this week.
What about those other two, Lloyd and Mills?
Yeah, so we expect Jake to be fine. He'll come back into the team this week. Millsy, we're hoping that he'll be okay to come back in as well. He won't be 100%, but hasn't been for the majority of the year anyway. So we expect him to be available this week, and Lance as well, obviously, to come back in the team. So I'd like to get three handy ins.
Lance, was there any issue with him, or was it just a purely arrested thing and he's right to go this week?
No, we wanted to. I mean, we've been open from the very start of the season that he wouldn't play every game. As I mentioned last week, he'd played 7 in a row since the bye. We wanted to get some specific training into him, some really high-speed running during the week, which as much as about injury prevention as anything. And we're able to do that last week. He's pulled up well this week, so we expect him to be available.
John, just back on Nick for a second.
Yes, Mark?
Just back on Nick for a little second now, because it looked like it was his ankle at the weekend and it ends up being his fibula. Can you tell us a bit about what happened there and how bad it is?
Oh, it's just really low. I'm not a doctor, but it's really low near your ankle, and so we expect at the time that it's going to be in his ankle, but it's really low on that fibula. So there's a small fracture there. We expect he'll see the specialist this week. He's likely to have an operation where they might plate it, but after that we expect him to be jogging maybe at that 6-week mark or running at that 6-week mark and have a full pre-season. So whilst it's not ideal that he's not playing this year, clearly, the good thing is that we don't expect it'll impact too greatly on his pre-season. He should be able to have a full pre-season.
Thanks.
And John, as you said, made the point that Nick's been in some great form over the past couple of months, and Josh is always going to be difficult to replace. So have you given any thought yet to how you might shuffle things around, or perhaps who's pushing for inclusion in the team? Well,
there's three handy ins coming back in. We hope to get obviously Mills, Lloyd and Franklin coming in. So that sort of helps buffer the pain of losing a couple of decent players straight up. And so we'll wait and see how the rest of the week progresses, what the team looks like as far as our reserves. The last couple of weeks have been playing really good footy, and we'll see if we need to make any more changes outside of that, probably the next day or two. But off the cuff, those three, you'd expect if they're right to play, they'll come back in.
And as well as those three, Chad Warner played on ball quite a bit before he was sidelined. How has he been going in the VFL scratch matches, and would he be ready to return if there was a place for him?
Yeah, he was good again yesterday. He's played the last 3 weeks now. He was good yesterday. We're hoping that he's pulled up quite well this week. We'll make that decision on whether he plays based upon the balance of the team and what it looks like later in the week.
Is there a chance Dawson goes back to half-back again, John? Is that one of the options?
Oh, we've got options that we can work through. Obviously one of the most obvious ones is Jake Lloyd comes back in. He can play half-back. So we'll work through that this week. But obviously if we lose Blakey and he goes out of the team, there's a spot available for Jake Lloyd to come straight back into that defensive back 6 or 7.
What did you make of Braden's game on the weekend? And is he an option to go back to that half-back position, or are you more happy to keep him up forward?
Braden's, well, he's an option to go back there as well. We know he's got that flexibility if we need to. He's played probably the last month as a forward. He's played early on the season as a defender. He's learning his craft every week. He gives us some real speed and punch no matter where he plays. So we'll see how he goes during the week, but we've got that flexibility if we need to.
And Lewis and Colin both had serviceable games. Colin obviously coming on late as the sub, but he had a very strong last quarter.
Yeah, he did. We know he's played a bit of senior football before. It was good to have him available as a sub to come straight back in to that replacing Nick role and not shuffle the other members of the team. So that was important. He did it quite well in the last quarter. He's played a bit of senior footy. We know he's quite capable of giving the opportunity as well.
Is that the most important part now that a couple of injuries have emerged, having all that depth players that have played some senior footy and are able to come in and play a role?
Well, you'd like to think that we've got a reasonable squad that we've been able to play over the course of the year that all had a different taste of it. That doesn't mean that that someone can't come out of those blokes that haven't played seniors and still contribute. We think we've got to be open-minded to that as well, and so we'll wait and see how the weeks progress. We know that there's, as I mentioned before, there's going to be 3 come back in, we'd hope, and so outside of that, we'll wait and see.
Sounds like that pre-finals bye is officially gone or will be official fairly soon. How does that affect your planning at all? How do you sort of feel about that?
Yeah, well, obviously, we were thinking about it last week. There was talk about it, nothing quite confirmed, and we still don't know. So we went with that last week, particularly regarding Lance, to be able to train him hard during the week in the gym and on the training track. But he's pulled up well this week. He'll be able to build into the game. So that was, as I mentioned, about injury prevention as much as anything. And so that was in our planning slightly last week. Once again, we're hearing talk about it. Still hasn't been absolutely confirmed, but we can only do what's in front of us at the moment. We only play what's in front of us, which is talk about it. Nothing confirmed. We made some decisions last week. We expect, if that's confirmed today or tomorrow, that there's no pre-finals bye, that we needed to do. We got what we wanted out of last week, which is those players that needed to freshen up a bit.
What about in terms of the team's form? Like, you've run 6 of the last 7 or whatever it is, you're rolling into the finals in good form. Is it good to keep that momentum going in a sense without the bye?
Yeah, it all depends upon what your circumstances are, whether you get injuries. I mean, if you're looking at Josh Kennedy, he probably would have appreciated the bye. It just depends. With a minute 30 to go in the game, you're probably not so concerned about whether you have the bye or not. So you look very much through your own eyes at the time. Each club does, as far as what you feel like you need or don't need. I don't think it's worth considering too much, because it'll be the decision, and whether you like it or not, it'll be we have to do it. So you get on with it. That's the avenue we've approached, or the attitude we've approached this with the whole time, really, since we've been on the road.
John, with your ladder position orbit set, would you consider resting or managing multiple players this week if there isn't going to be that pre-finals bye, once it's confirmed?
Oh, we did it to a certain extent last week. I'm not sure whether we'd do it this week. We think that there's a fine line between that. Really, it was just about specifically each individual. Training was for Lance, get some really good training into him. Jake was a bit banged up, obviously Callum with his Achilles, so that was really specific. There's nothing pressing at the moment for us this week that stands out for us to do it. But that's not to say if later in the week, if there's a couple of sore players or 1 or 2 sore players, you wouldn't consider it. But there's nothing at the moment that jumps out.
So at the moment, with the way the groups where they're at, there's no need to rest 10 or more players, similar to what Fremantle and North Melbourne did, a few years ago.
No, that's not in our planning at the moment. I mean, it's a fine line between making sure you rest and approach the finals fresh versus battle hardened and in form, and that's always only really do you assess that in the benefit of hindsight. And as we know when we're making these decisions, you don't have that benefit. So we just go with what it feels like. We've gone down the path of hoping that our players are nice and hardened and ready for whatever comes up in the next couple of weeks.
John, obviously still a bit to play out and we're a week away from finals at least, but what would a Sydney Derby elimination final mean to you?
Mark, let's get through this week before we... we'll address that next week. What do you reckon?
How about an adjacent question, John? Just curious to know, I mean, you're now guaranteed a home final. It's obviously not going to happen in Sydney. What does that process look like in terms of deciding where that's played? As I've talked about it, when do you start talking about it?
I don't know, to be honest, how it plays out. I mean, we don't know whether the bye's absolutely rock solid confirmed or not yet, and so I don't know what the process is in regards to, you know, if we have a say over our home final or not, where that is or not. So, you know, I've mentioned it a few times during this period, but you don't know. And so I'm sure you understand, you know, there's a lot of speculation about what would happen and if and that you just don't know. And so this is a great example of why we do concentrate on the team that's very much in front of us, which is the Gold Coast Suns. They've played well against us this week, over the last couple of times. So that's why we do live in the moment, because you just don't know. Charlie and Tom speak to the AFL offline, but that can change regularly as well. So you try not to get caught up in that too much as a coach, and our footy department just concentrates on what's in front of us.
And just a quick one on Bud, obviously, to be able to bring him back a week out from finals, fresh as a daisy, hopefully, is a great thing. I think that's the only time you've had to sort of voluntarily rest him throughout the year since he started playing. You must just be really happy and vindicated with how you've handled him, and I guess the plan around him is very specific, but at the right time of the year, it's obviously looking like it's working well. Yeah,
look, I'm always, let's comment on it at the end of the year, because we're still in the midst of it all. You know, we've discussed whether he needed to have a week off over the last probably month. We'd have been aware that he'd had the 13 games in a row, 7 since the bye. We didn't want his load to get to the point where it was impacting his training too much. So it was talked about probably over the last 3 or 4 weeks, but he was keen to play. There was no really great reason for it to jump out, but we just felt that you know, once it got to the point of only one game left this week before the start of the final series, that last week was the time to do it, and we'll wait and see how he comes up from that. But you know, once again, as we're preparing for that with information in front of us, we thought that was the right way to go.